part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
And welcome to another edition of the Red Guy and Rhoda podcast here on the Press Play Podcast Network. We are sponsored by MGM Northfieldpark. Northfieldpark, your home for live and simulcast racing. Catch the excitement of live harness racing every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Saturday, and Sunday evening at 6 p.m. That's when they have the post time. So get on out there. Free admission, free parking every day at Northfield Park. Shout out to our producer extraordinaire, Dave Emmert, for making sure you all get us in the podcatosphere. And what a podcast we have for everybody today, Michael Red Guy, as it is the game, the week, the matchup, and we've got a guy from each side of the Ohio State-Michigan rivalry joining us today on the R&R podcast, right, guy? It doesn't get any better than that, does it?
No, Roadman, it doesn't. I mean, this is special. And, you know, not just guys who were instrumental and outstanding players in their respective programs, Mike Doss at Ohio State, John Kolesar at Michigan, but two guys who had in the game between the two on the last Saturdays of November, had huge performances, both of them, that we're going to get into during their playing days. So to me, Roadman, as someone, you know, who grew up with this rivalry that began when Bo Schembechler came and became the head coach of the University of Michigan in 1969, it changed everything. I think everybody knows that, as Woody Hayes was Bo's mentor. Bo played for Woody. Bo coached with Woody. And then the 10-year war began when Bo took the Michigan job. And Kenny, I know I'm biased, but I still think there's nothing like it in all of college football. It's the greatest rivalry going. And these two guys are going to share a lot of their memories with us tonight.
Yeah, we are thrilled to have them with us here. And let's bring in from McKinley High School, two-time high school state champ, one-time national high school state champ, national champ at The Ohio State, three-time All-American at The Ohio State University, and a Super Bowl champ. Throw that ring in there as well. Let's bring in Mike Doss joining us here today on the R&R podcast. Mike, thanks for joining us. How are you?
I'm doing great. Excited, to be on with you guys this evening. It's a holiday week and looking forward to Saturday around 12 noon.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun, as it always is. And John Kolesar, man, as a Buckeye guy, you impacted that game in a negative way for me, man, in watching you. And we have a fellow friend in Wade Masad, who I went to college with, that you were teammates there in Westlake. And Wade spoke extremely highly of you, saying, one of the fastest guys he ever knew. And boy, did you flash that off in those games against Ohio State. Welcome to the R&R podcast. How are you?
Hey, great to be here. Looking forward to the conversation. Nothing better than this week for sure.
Yeah, this is the week. And Michael, Red Guy, we'll throw that in there because we have Mike Doss with us as well. Reg, you get started with this as your memories growing up with this, and then take it in whatever direction you want with these guys, because they played in the game. That's the ultimate.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we'll go with the young fella. We'll Mike Doss first. How's that? Johnny, back when Bo was coach of the Wolverines, Johnny played for Bo back from 1985 to 1988. But Mike Doss, let's start, because 2002 was a magical year for the Ohio State Buckeyes. You just mentioned, bro, Jim Tressel. Discussed when he got the job in 2001. And in 2001, Ohio State beats Michigan, very tight football game. And then 2002, down in the Horseshoe, you're playing for an opportunity to go to the national championship game. And again, that was finally decided right when Will Allen was able to pick off John Navarre late in that one, right? You had as well a very strong game. What's your biggest memories about that, Mike, in that game in 2002 that was decided on that Will Allen pick in the end zone that sent the Buckeyes to ultimately the national championship, and then winning the national championship over the Miami Hurricanes?
Absolutely. I mean, what memories I have that day, one of the most fondest memories was, that was senior day. The return for my senior year, to say I'm coming back, for another year in Columbus. And I wanted to win a national championship and get my degree because my mother, wanted me to be the first college graduate in the family to make that decision and to see how that season played out, the magical season. A lot of, we were the cardiac Buckeyes, for a lot of people that year, giving out heart attacks week in and week out. But to have that Saturday culminate against your rivalry and know if you win this game, your team to the national championship, which hadn't been done in 30-something years, it was beautiful to run out that tunnel, senior day, and my mother standing there with my father, run down that tunnel of pride with all the former players, and my career just culminated to that last game in the shoe and to hug my mother, that Saturday, that's the greatest memory that I can have. God rest my mother's soul.
Yeah, it's phenomenal, no question about it. And again, like you said, to go win the national championship. And then Kenny, I'm gonna hit John Kolesar with his. Now, check this out. Now, Johnny's a freshman, okay, in 1985, and the Michigan quarterback at that time for Bo Schembechler,
Jim Harbaugh.
Wow. No question about it. So
Jim
it's already
Harbaugh.
Johnny had some of the best wheels in college football, even as a freshman. That was honest. So, Johnny, Michigan's up fourth quarter. Ohio State blitzing. You go deep. I believe I think it was, if I remember right, it was just a go route. You went deep, and Harbaugh, as he was being blitzed, got drilled and laid it up for you. 77-yard touchdown pass. Michigan Stadium exploded. Johnny, that's got to be pretty heady stuff. You're an 18-year-old freshman, man, getting in the rivalry like that and having that kind of impact in a Michigan win.
Well, certainly, those experiences will last a lifetime. And I think, we talk about Michigan at those days and a little before Mike's time at Ohio State. But Jimmy Tressel was in the box during that. He was the wide receiver coach, I believe, at Ohio State. But in those days, Bo and against Earl, I was a wide blocker. I mean, and Mike can appreciate this. A lot of those games were running games and all that. And now all these passing things like that. But, that's what sucked them in. So it was a 2nd and 7, and they thought we're going to run, want to control the clock. And they had a blitz cut. William White came up, a little catch coverage, and, I did my job. And those are the things that you do and how you're taught as a team player. I just did my job. And I was a guy that crossed the goal line, but it took 10 other guys to make that happen. Jimmy took a shot by Sonny Gordon, one of the great strong safeties at Ohio State, and threw it out there. And, up to a few games before that, the deep threat wasn't there. So he had trust in that. He threw the ball out, laid it in my hands, and he kind of outrun the rest. But certainly a great feeling. And, and even after that, the game's not over. And when you score, and I don't know how, Mike was trained, but, the game is not over. And so you continue to hone your craft, making sure you're doing all those things you need to do to succeed. And in that game in particular, you are at all levels, mental, emotional, and physical. You're at the top of the game, and you're playing against the best. And you want to play against the best. And if you're playing against the best, that means you're pretty good too. And that makes that game so special.
All right, so both of you guys, Northeast Ohio guys, Mike Doss goes to The Ohio State. John Kolesar, you go to Michigan. I want to start with John on this one and then get back to you, Mike. John, what the hell did you do, man? Why'd you go to Michigan? I mean, come on.
You'll appreciate, Cole. You got Garland Rivers. You know him, coaching at McKinley and stuff. So I played with Garland, and he ended up being a coach. But this is how the rivalry is, and they're so special because there's so many intricacies that make it that great of a rivalry. And the story I tell, and so people don't know, my dad, he played at Michigan. He played in the 50s, and he got an offer from Ohio State. Now, Ohio State back then, they were just coming off 5 head coaches, right? They were called the graveyard of coaches. At 5 coaches in 10 years. Woody takes the job. Has some these unusual tactics and techniques, kind of messes in the faculty's upset. Who is this guy? We don't like this guy. So he brought junior college players in and whatnot. So what happened was my dad's high school football coach said, listen, we don't know about this Hayes guy. All right. Now this is 1951, right? So Woody wasn't doing anything like that. And so he goes, go up to Michigan, check it out. He goes to Michigan, he gets books and tuition back then for whatever that matter. And so he ends up going to Michigan. And so I was raised a Michigan fan, living in Ohio and whatnot. So the credit doesn't necessarily go to me deciding on or my dad deciding on. It's the guy who influenced him to go. And Mike, you're going to appreciate this because the guy's name, he was a head coach at Menor High School. So my dad played at Menor. And the head coach at that time was a guy named Lee Trussell.
Wow. Look at
Head
I like
blown,
that story.
man. Boom, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
This is where it gets really weird because my dad used to kind of babysit Jimmy Tressel. We know the Tressels for years. And Kenny, you going to Baldwin Wallace. I used to go to games at Baldwin Wallace when I was a kid watching Lee Trussell coach those teams. And so I have Tressel in me. I have Woody in me. I have Bo in me. So that's what makes some of the rivalry special now. And I know some of you might know my son's at Michigan right now. And he's a safety.
And an outstanding special teams guy, too, a gunner on and has been playing terrific this year. You won't say that because you're too humble, but I'm going to for you. John Kolesar has been an outstanding part of Michigan's strong year and big success this year. So congrats on that, Johnny.
Yep. Hats off to
Thank
you
you for that. But, the whole thing when Tress took the job, I think he was the third choice at Ohio. So I can't remember the first two guys, but I believe he was the third choice. And when he took that, or when they offered you, I just went, oh no. I knew what he was going to do. And really what Tress did, and you talked to him, and then Mike, I don't know if you knew that, but he said he shut the door of Ohio guys going to Michigan.
Corral the borders.
Right. And the teams that I was part of at Michigan, we had, Bo was from Ohio, Jerry Hanlon, Terrell Burton, Gary Moeller was the captain of Ohio State, coached at Michigan. We had a big Ohio contingency and we lost that. And I think that's the nucleus of the Ohio State football team, is Ohio guys. And if you look right now, we look at the top 5, top 10, whatever, we got Ohio State, Michigan, Cincinnati, Notre Dame, right? Where are those teams pulling from kids from?
Mostly Ohio.
They're all pulling from Ohio. They get the sprinkling guys from Miami and Texas, but the core of those teams are all Ohio guys. So that's why I love McKinley guys, man, because that's where it works. That's old school. So my kid went to St. Ed's and I went to a simple public school, but we ended up playing Steubenville. Playing against Charlie Keenan, who went going to Ohio State, and some of the stuff that you go against. But that makes it fun. That makes it, because it's family, and you look at that, and anyone's played in this game, we respect each other like we're brothers, and we had an opportunity to play in something as special as this. And looking forward to this weekend. And
that's
these guys
great stuff from John
experience.
Kolesar, former Michigan wide receiver. Mike Doss, you end up at the Ohio State. Two coaches, right? John Cooper and Jim Tressel when you were there. So what was it, for you to end up at Ohio State, and take me through that, going through Cooper and then Coach Tress coming in and shutting the door and turning this rivalry around in Ohio State's favor?
Take it a step back there, Kenny. My history of Ohio State started in 6th grade. So I was lucky enough that I was selected by my 6th grade teacher to be in a scholarship program which watched minorities and underprivileged kids from 6th grade on through to graduate high school. It's called the Ohio State Young Scholars Program, which is still in existence, and I contribute to it annually.
Wow.
I was able to come to Columbus in the summers and stay on campus for a week or two at a time and enjoy the campus, do workshops, do mixers, skating parties, basketball tournaments. So I was able to visit Columbus on a regular basis every summer. And that's actually how I met my wife. She was a Columbus native. We were 12 years old when we met. Her mother ends up marrying a guy from Canton, moves to Canton in middle school, and we went to high school together. We were best friends, and we started truly dating our senior year in high school right there at the end. But as my journey in recruiting, Kenny Peterson, was the first big commit, for Coach Cooper. He was in my area. He's a year older than me. Jamar Martin was my fullback, had committed to Ohio State. But a lot of people don't know this story. I was a Charles Woodson fan.
Wow.
True story. This is a true story, John. The day that Coach Cooper comes to Kent McKinley and offers me my scholarship, I'm wearing Charles Woodson's jersey.
Wow.
So Tom McDaniels, our head coach, Josh McDaniels, offensive coordinator of the Patriots, and my quarterback Dan McDaniels, we played together. Coach McDaniel calls me down on the PA, Mike Doss to the athletic, to the coach's room, and I come in there. I'm wearing Charles Woodson's jersey, and Coach Cooper says to me, he is like, what he says to me, excuse me, Michael, why are you wearing that jersey? And I just said, Coach, I said, Charles Woodson plays both ways. He's from Ohio. And I was like, wherever I go, I would like the opportunity to play both ways. And Coach Cooper said, well, I'm here to offer you a scholarship. Whatever you want, whatever position you want to play in Columbus, you had that opportunity. And I went home. I told my uncle who raised me, and I remember my uncle was pissed because I was wearing that Charles Woodson jersey. And he goes, John Cooper came into the school and you were wearing that jersey? And he looked at me in my face and he goes, you're committing tomorrow. And I said, no, I'm not. I said, I want to know what Michigan is going to do. So listen to this story here, John. Brady Hoke, the defensive coordinator at the time, who eventually became the head coach later, but he was the defensive coordinator at the time. I called him because he was sending me handwritten letters. You know, the recruiting was different than today's day, but back then you get the handwritten letter was everything. Those little mailers are cool, but you get a handwritten letter. So I had Brady Hoke's, number. He's in the office. I call him. I said, Coach Hoke, this is Mike Doss. We've been talking. You sending letters. You guys recruit me. I said, I just got offered by Ohio State. What are you going to do? He says, Coach Carr is the one who offers early for all players. We have to get his approval. He says, I'm going to go into a meeting with Coach Carr and I will call you back in the morning. This is a true story. And the next day, there wasn't Twitter, there wasn't Instagram, wasn't these internet posts. The next day, in the paper, Brady Hoke takes a job in the NFL, and I never got a call from Lloyd Carr. That is the reason why I committed to Ohio State. Besides, and that was the true reason why I committed. When I saw that in the paper, I said they never even called me back, and I was pissed because I was.
These are the subtle things that happen that change courses of history, right? I mean, your great career at Ohio State was because of that factoid. If it was a day sooner or later, it could have changed the whole idea. Or number two,
but
that's
the reason I wore number 2 when I got to Ohio State was still because of Charles Woodson, and I ended up meeting Charles after we won a national championship. There was a big. The Columbus Football Foundation had a big awards annually, and they would bring in all the athletes. And Charles had just won the Rookie of the Year or Defensive Player of the Year, and I would just remember. And I'm sorry, I hadn't got to Ohio State yet, so he was already in the league, so it was his rookie year. He won Rookie of the Year, and this award show was me and. Aquan Bowden, who was a receiver for the Arizona Cardinals, he flew in from Florida. I'm Ohio. I was the National Defensive Player of the Year from Ohio, and Aquan was the Offensive Player of the Year. And Charles Woodson was at that deal. And I said when they gave me my award, and I said to Charles Woodson, I said, "There's a new number 2 in the Big Ten, and I hope I can represent it just like you did." And when I got on the mic, but I was like, it'll be on the Ohio State side, obviously. We kind of, had a little chipper there. But obviously my career in Columbus was a lot of fun. I wouldn't change it for the world. It was the greatest experience that I've ever had. And, my uncle said the biggest thing was, you're from Ohio. Ohio State offered you first. Like, it just makes sense that you be an all-Ohio guy and let that be.
That's great stuff. And we're just getting started with John Kolesar from Michigan, Mike Doss from the Ohio State. We got to get a break in here on the Red Guy and Rhoda podcast brought to you by MGM Northfieldpark. We'll come back with more great stories you're not going to find anywhere else than right here on the R&R podcast. Stay with us. Northfield Park is your home for live and simulcast racing. Catch the excitement of live harness racing every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Saturday, and Sunday evening with a 6 p.m. post time. Wager and win daily on the top thoroughbred and harness tracks from around the world. Plus, enter to play the free handicapping contest every Sunday for a chance to win cash. Top prize is $500. Registration begins at 11 a.m. Free admission and free parking every day at Northfield Park.
Hey everyone, it's JD from the Hyman Podcast. Backed by popular demand, I'm excited to let you know that new episodes of the Hyman Podcast will drop every other Monday on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. We're going to continue the conversations we started last season and keep having those hard conversations. There is so much in store for you this season, and I'm excited to share it with you. Subscribe today so you don't miss a single moment. The Hyman Podcast, part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
Hey everyone, I'm Holly Wetzel.
And I'm Jeremy Powell.
And we are your hosts of The Orange is Oranger, a Cleveland Browns podcast on the Press Play Podcast Network. We give you all the dog pound coverage that you'll need each week, get you ready for kickoff and beyond.
Don't miss our breakdowns of each week's matchups, game recaps, and any and all news out of Berea to feed your Browns appetite. As we all know, Holly, dogs gotta eat.
That's right, Jeremy. Hit that subscribe button and never miss an episode of the Orange is Oranger Browns podcast on the Press Play Podcast Network.
It's not an illusion.
We continue with the R&R podcast brought to you by MGM Northfield Park. We appreciate the sponsorship of Northfield Park here on the Red Guy and Rhoda podcast. Free admission, free parking every day at Northfield Park. Go have some fun, watch the ponies, the trotters, win some money, and maybe you hit a big trifecta or something. You'll feel like Mike Doss did in 2002, or maybe like John Kolesar did in 1985, as though they both had impacts, Michael Red Guy, on this. Well, let's just say it for what it is. The greatest rivalry in all of sports. Forget just football, in all of sports, Michael.
Well, I think we all agree on that, Mike Doss. No doubt about that. And again, these two guys, as we said at the beginning of the show, not only were they integral parts of this, but both of them had big-time special performances in the game. Johnny Kolesar, we mentioned your freshman year. Okay, now 1986, because I think this is a terrific story as well. I mean, I had the great pleasure when I was a high school player at Detroit Cass Tech to go to two of Bo's first camps after he took the job, at Michigan. So Bo became, all of us kids in Detroit, John, Bo became very ingrained in him and all of us, early on when he took over as a head coach of the Wolverines. All right, so now you have that big performance in 85. It's 1986. You lose to Minnesota, if I remember, right the week before. And Jim Harbaugh comes out, I believe it was Monday, Michigan quarterback Jim Harbaugh, and says, we're going to get right. Not only are we going to get right, we're going to win the Big Ten championship. We're going to go to Columbus this Saturday. I guarantee you we're going to beat Ohio State and go to Rose Bowl. What was Bo's reaction to that week leading up to the game?
Well, I think it's more of a media thing in that regard. I think the media tries to get the guy to say a word, to say something to inflame. And I think, in that spirit, it was just showing his confidence. He had some resolve, and he wanted to, make sure that he was doing what he could to win. Use the word guarantee or whatnot that can, be embellished in the press, because that's going to be locker room material or whatever. But I think, and I think Mike knows this, we are, they train them now, right? Like, it's kind of like, I always tell kids to watch Bull Durham with Tim Robbins, or what's it? Costner tells Tim Robbins, hey, I'm just happy to be here. Really working hard for my team.
Right.
Really just glad I'm doing this. And I tell you what, I'm just happy to be part of, this team, and that's really what you're supposed to do. And so sometimes, a reporter's doing their job. They want to get someone an edge. They want to get a guy to say something he shouldn't say. And we've had those over the years, I think, on probably both sides. And, I think at the end of the day, it's more for the gallery. I think during the game, I don't think, Mike or I are thinking about what Jim Harbaugh said during the week. We're playing our game, because there's so many more things to think about. Your assignment, again, the mental, the emotional, and the physical, you're at such a high level. It almost a blur sometimes when you're in that game, because you are playing against the best, undoubtedly. I mean, I played Notre Dame, I played USC, I played these teams in college, and Mike said the same thing. You're playing the best because they're going to be technique conscious and they're going to smack you in the mouth. And if you're not ready to play that game, you're gonna learn quick. And that's what takes over. All this pregame stuff doesn't matter. And I think the guys have been good on both sides this week. I haven't seen it.
It's only Tuesday, John. Give it some time. All right. We're taping this on a Tuesday night.
Yeah. I got to make sure I don't say anything. I don't know, Mike. We got to make sure we're not doing it justice. But the thing about me and what I've really enjoyed is running to guys like Mike at a bar or at Varsity Club or go somewhere else. And that's the fun part because we have this fraternity and it's very small.
Yes.
It's very small. And it's about respect. And if you had a chance playing that game, that's what makes it really special. The postgraduate stuff.
Mike
Doss,
really awesome. For you, looking back on it, your impact. I remember hearing stories about you at McKinley when you came in, at McKinley. Who's this Doss kid? He's only a sophomore, and you impacted that rivalry game that that is the greatest in high school football, the McKinley-Massillon rivalry. And then you got to play in the Michigan-Ohio State rivalry as well. So give me a comparison there because you're going to be asked about both of those rivalries wherever you go because not only did you play in them, you impacted and won titles at both levels in that rivalry.
Man, just truly blessed to just say I've been able to experience that on those levels, right? As you alluded to, being able to play in the McKinley-Massillon Tiger rivalry kind of fueled and gave me my foundation of what a rivalry meant. It was like, I was there at the 100th game in 8th grade when, Willie Spencer forward laterals to win the game and we lose, and then the following week, we end up, beating those guys in the playoffs. And then to play in that, I was on special teams as a freshman, and to be undefeated against Massillon was great. Every time I see Chris Philman, that's exactly what I tell him. I was like, hey, I was undefeated. So now I come to college. John Cooper recruits me. I know the story. Coops, had these, tough games against that team up north. We can't win the big game. And, as I come in, I end up breaking into my first college start is against the team up north. So I got a chance to be a 4-year starter against the team up north. And I remember I sacked Tom Brady, stripped him. We got a nice recovery. We're there. And the greatest non-touchdown run in Ohio State history that would have changed the trajectory probably of the rivalry early on was Jonathan Wells gets a nice 76-yard run to the 3-yard line. We're already up by 6. If we score, we go up by 13. We get a false start, a holding penalty, and we miss the field goal. And Tom Brady just takes the game over, and we end up losing. And, just that John Cooper, mystique of just when you're playing against that team up north, you're just waiting for the egg to crack. You're waiting for the situation to fall apart. My sophomore year, was it Dan? The baseball player comes
Drew
in.
Henson.
Henson.
Drew Henson.
Yeah, Drew Henson
Yep.
comes in. David Terrell, have a career day in Columbus in the shoe, and I'm just sitting there, 0-2, in this rivalry, and I'm just like, I need to feel a different energy. We fire Cooper. And Coach Jim Tressel becomes the head coach. And you were right, John. He was behind Glenn Mason. Glenn Mason was kind of like the lead candidate that everyone was hoping would get the job. Tressel comes out of nowhere, this, division, 1 AA guy who's won a couple championships. No one knows the story. And he gets the job. And Tressel actually wrote me my first letter in high school when I was a sophomore too. Just a side note on that. But he gets the job. He comes in. And we start off-season workouts, and there's a countdown clock. The first day, he obviously makes that statement at the basketball game. So you're kind of like, okay, who's this guy in 310 days? You're going to be proud of our team. And then the first day he has the job, there's a countdown clock put into the weight room, several. So you got the main hallway, you got the locker room, you got the weight room, and you never really, you're paying attention. I'm a junior, and I see it, and it's counting down to kickoff. to the Michigan game. And everybody was like, what is going, he just totally came in and he sets this tone and says, this is what rivalry is about. You need to be thinking about this every chance you get. You need to be reminded that this is important, just like your family, calling your parents, making your bed when you wake up in the morning, washing your clothes every Saturday. He puts this like whole story line in your head, like this is the most important thing. And then we're counting down to this. And then the first practice in spring that we have, John knows special teams, walk through a little bit, then you kind of get going. The middle of practice, the whistle blows and they go maize and blue period. No one even knows what we're about to do. And we're working on fundamentals, how to strip a football, how to make interceptions, quarterback security, ball handling, taking the lineman running the extra 5 yards to get the extra block. And we commit to this every practice, every day, this mentality of this is important. And you're going to take time out of your 24 hours a day to recognize this is important, but it's months away. This is like, this is spring ball. And the biggest change that he did for us, Coach Tressel, was the first Saturday practice that we had, we broke down every quarter. So not the first Saturday, but every Saturday practice we had the first year with Tressel. We watched the last year's Michigan game every quarter. And then Coach Tressel highlighted about 5 or 6 plays and said, these plays lost the game. If we win these 5, 6 plays, this game changes and Ohio State wins. And now you come into fall camp with the same routine every day. And Tress truly got to the point where it was rivalry week. So now we're 8-4. We're 8-4. It's coming into rivalry week. And I never forget it. Or just imagine your offices, right? Or wherever when you live in your house. That Saturday, Michigan game week comes in. It's Sunday. You don't go to the facility. John knows after Saturday's game, you probably go to the facility about 2:00. You got the morning sleep in, rest. We go to the facility and all the walls are they're plastered with posters. They got elementary schools. Tressel had middle schools. He had high schools, all sending posters against how to beat that team up north, Michigan, however you want to word it. And our lockers, everywhere is plastered. So you went from all this Ohio State memorabilia, Lombardi trophies, Heisman's, all this stuff. All this stuff is covered with beat that team up north. And the mentality just clicked at that moment. Like, this is truly important. And that week, the preparation, execution. So when we took that trip in 2001 up to Ann Arbor, we felt that we were the most prepared and we were ready for this moment because Tressel lived it up. Coach Cooper was kind of like, it's another game, it's important, but Tressel made it. He made the emphasis that this is the most important thing that you're going to commit to, and you better be ready to live in the moment. You better be ready to play in this moment. And we went out there and we won that game, and it hadn't been, 13, 15 years or 17 years or something crazy that we hadn't won in Ann Arbor. And, that for me was like the triumph. I had 2 interceptions in that game. I had a career day. And to make that leap, and, as I alluded to earlier, my senior year to play that game and to know that this goes to the national championship game is senior day. I mean, Tressel changed the trajectory of that game for these last 2 decades, and now it's continued to carry on. Unfortunately, John and those guys have been on the losing side, the last couple of times. But I'm telling you, when Jim Tressel came into Ohio State and he put that clock and he made that week as important as it is to breathing, we knew that, okay, this means a lot. And that made the rivalry. That made it.
Well, Mike, you mentioned that win in 2001. John will remember this. The last time Ohio State won in Michigan Stadium was 1987. And that was, John, you were there, right? So it was 14 years. And that was when Earl Bruce came out with the fedora right? And everybody had Earl headbands on. And Johnny, you had won in 85 and 86. And that game was right. You were 3-1 against Ohio State, right, Johnny? So that was the only loss that Mike was referring to, 1987, after Earl Bruce had been fired that week, right?
Yep.
Mike, Earl was fired that week, and they came in, I think it was 23-20, got the 3-point win. Chris Spielman was on that Ohio State team as well.
And that was an interesting game because we did uncharacteristically things wrong. We had 4 or 5 turnovers, I believe. And Mike gets this, and I always chalk up to football gods. Sometimes you're not going to win a game, or sometimes
everything's going to go against you. You're right. Yeah.
Right. I chalk it up to football gods. The day Earl Bruce got fired, the athletic director at the time was a guy named Rick Bay. Well, Rick Bay was a University of Michigan graduate, right? Rick Bay did not fire Earl Bruce. The university president fired Earl Bruce. Rick Bay resigned in protest. Okay. So you see again how the Michigan-Ohio State thing kind of works together. So who do they hire? Well, they hired the guy who beat Michigan in the 87 Rose Bowl. Well, and that was John Cooper, who was coaching Arizona State. And so it was kind of like John's a great guy and everything, but he wasn't Tress, or he wasn't Bo, he wasn't Moeller, he didn't have this connections to this region, I believe. And I just think, and to what Mike said, he didn't emphasize or didn't understand what that rivalry was about. I mean, Jimmy Tressel grew up with it, and that's a big part of that. And I think, there's a little karma that goes along with it. And we had a run for 20 years. And now the karma went the other way. And Ohio State's, you go to Wikipedia and I look at the scores over the years, there's 20-year swings in the rivalry, except for the 10-year war. And so, and Ohio State's playing at such a high level right now. And it, kind of mimics the 68 team and the 69 team. And you invoke all of these types of things. But that's why we play the game. And talent aside, prolific offenses aside, defenses, it's such an emotional game, and things can happen that may not normally happen during the other games. And this is why I chalk up the football gods. And I think one quote I see, Bo, said, there's never been a game that we played. And again, we had our bumps in the road with some coach changes that weren't a good fit at Michigan, and we paid the price on that. So, but now, we're trying to get that back in order, and you're starting to see some of that old school Michigan component to come back. And I think Ohio State appreciates it too. Everybody's really excited for the game, and it can look like, hey, it's about time it's relevant again. Thank you. I go, well, we're fixing it. We're getting it going. And they won the games they should, and now it's for the marbles.
And as we're taping this, and we'll get to a break here, guys, and then come back for our final segment. As we're taping this, the College Football Playoff Committee announced their new top 4. Georgia 1, Ohio State 2, Alabama 3, Cincinnati, first time ever a non-Power 5 conference team is in the top 4 of the college football playoffs. So Luke Fickell, Ohio State ties, obviously, gets the Bearcats in at number 4, and Michigan's number 5. So the 117th meeting between Ohio State and Michigan will be number 2 versus number 5. The winner goes to the Big Ten championship game, and if they win that, they're in the college football playoff. So we're going to get into that a little bit more when we come back here on the R&R podcast, brought to you by MGM Northfieldpark.
Hey, it's Tito, host of the Premier Fantasy Podcast. Get all the news and analysis you need to dominate your fantasy league. I've been doing this as long as anybody in the business. I can help give you the edge in your leagues. It's the Premier Fantasy Podcast, part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
Hello, Brooks here with the Books with Brooks monthly book club podcast. Here's how Books with Brooks works. We read one book a month, and then we talk about it. Classics like Stephen King's The Shining, debut novels like We Are the Brennans by Tracy Lang, and tons of other compelling, life-changing stories, one book and 1 month at a time. So come read along with us and then listen in.
Hey, I'm Jason. And I'm Gary. And if you've ever wondered where you can turn $50 into $5,000 legally outside of Las Vegas, then the sports card market, which is completely insane right now, might be for you.
Join us for the Ball Card Show.
the sports podcast for the sports collector.
And we continue with the R&R podcast brought to you by MGM Northfieldpark. Michael Regai, Kenny Rhoda. We're happy to have two very special guests with us on this podcast. Mike Doss, legendary three-time All-American national champion at The Ohio State University, talking OSU football, and John Kolesar, Westlake, Ohio. He goes to Michigan and impacts this game twice in a big way in his career, and goes 3-1 against the Buckeyes while he was at Michigan in the mid-'80s. And gentlemen, we went to break talking about the rankings going into this week's game. What does it mean? And John, we'll start with you. What's it mean that this is 2 versus 5 on top of already being the greatest rivalry in college football this Saturday?
Nothing. These games, it's great for media and fans, and they love it. And it all matters at the end of the season. Where do you end up at the end, right? And, have these two teams, have the Big Ten represented in such a way is brilliant. These are people who are voting on teams that it doesn't matter. Alabama's going to play Georgia in the championship game. Michigan's got to play Ohio State. They're going to knock off each other. It's going to change next week. So it doesn't matter. What matters is the preparation this week for both teams, how they prepare. They're both coming off big wins. In Michigan State, you thought they'd put a better challenge together, but in Ohio State, again, operating at high levels right now. And so coming off that game, Michigan's coming off a big win against Maryland. Away game. So everyone, and I think from that perspective, that's what matters. How they prepare this week, how they get ready for this game, and records aside. And again, my senior year, Ohio State, Drew Cooper's first year, they were 4-5 going, or 4-5 going into that game, and it was a crazy game, and they almost pulled off at the end. So you don't know, and this is why they play the games. And in the '69 game, the Ohio State's greatest team in the history of college football per se. And Michigan pulled off an upset. So it goes both ways, and it's really about how they prepare for. That's what I care about. I want to see their and you got to measure that emotion too. They got coaches have to reel it in. They have to make sure that they're doing the things, but still do the practices. And Mike and I know that you got to have a great week of practice. If you don't have a great week of practice, that shows in the field, and undoubtedly so. So hopefully they're doing that on both sides.
Mike Doss, what about that? Do we as media members make too big a deal of that? It's 2 versus 5, like the big game. What was it? 2006. It was 1 versus 2. 42-39 at the shoe in Columbus. And that, is there too much made of that?
Yes and no. JK's right. John's right when he says, when as players, you're not looking at the ranking and being like, oh, this is going to make a difference. You have to go out and perform no matter what, because it is the rivalry. It is the bragging rights. It is a mano looking the other, team in the eye and other players in the eye, and knowing, hey, when this is over, this rivalry runs deep to the fact that I want to be able to look at, one of my Indianapolis Colts teammate, Cato Jr. was a linebacker at Ohio State. I want to look him in the face and know when I met him in Indianapolis, like, yeah, I kicked your butt, buddy. Like, you know what it was. And he does the same. And Marlon Jackson and, some of my Colt teammates. But in the sense of today's game a little bit with the college football playoff and the implementations of the Big Ten championship, what the Big Ten actually did was to actually give this game a little bit more emphasis, because we're all on the same side at the Big Ten East, that we know whoever in this game is going to go to the Big Ten championship to have that chance to play for that college football playoff. So the media does play it up a little bit, but in the sense of this week's matchup, it does have some playoff implications. The win for either squad gives them the nod. You go into the Big Ten championship and you win the Big Ten championship, you definitely need to be considered for the CFP, because the Big Ten Conference has quality teams, it's very competitive, and as we see that the Big Ten has played pretty well in the college football playoffs the last couple of years.
All right, John Kolesar, your quarterback is the head coach at Michigan. He's 0-5 against the Buckeyes, right? So he beat them as a player, guaranteed to win, delivered there, but hasn't defeated them as the coach. I don't know if you keep in touch with Jim in that. What would this mean if he were able to knock off number 2 Ohio State this week and get his first win as the head coach there at Michigan?
Well, like I said, and Trust said it best when he changed the atmosphere at Ohio State, and Michigan was a priority. Ohio State's a priority. It always is a priority. You always want to win that game. And truth be told, we were close a few times, right? We talk about the JT Parrott, short type of thing. We talk about the play here, play there. And, the aspect is that's why they play the games. And I'm sure he is excited as a coach as he was as a player. He has renewed stuff. We get off the COVID year. The team is playing well, much better. That we've made some changes in the off season with coaching staff and mindset and attitude. And so you're seeing some of that reflect on the field. So, I just, again, my son being there, I'm just so proud that he's going to have that opportunity to be on that field, against the Scarlet and Gray. And quite frankly, and Reggie, this Tommy Eichenberg, right? Westlake guy. Tommy and Caden have been best friends since they were 4 years old, and they've gone to opposing schools. But to see two kids grow up playing the game, and they're going to be on opposing side. One went to St. Ed's, one went to St. Ignatius. This in Michigan and Ohio State, and it's just a wonderful story. And again, that's what it comes down to: the players, the kids, and to see these guys play. And you mentioned a couple of guys in the league. When you're in the league and you play and you see the Ohio State, those are your teammates, man. They went to Ohio State, but if you don't know the Ohio State guy in that roster, you're going to connect.
Absolutely.
You're going to jab each other and have some fun. But I think Green Bay, they got two. They got the guard and the center. It's Ohio State and the Michigan guy. Blocking downfield. They're another part of the team. And so it's just that camaraderie and that you understand what you went through. It's a fraternity that's so special. So looking forward to that.
Johnny, I think Mike too, you'll appreciate this. I've always said that, because in these ensuing years, as the Jim Harbaugh, hasn't been able to, as a head coach, beat beat Ohio State. I've always said Jim Harbaugh is a hell of a lot better man than me, because here's why. If the media would have gone off of me, hey, Jim, you don't know how to beat Ohio State. You can't beat Ohio State. Jim, I would have said, excuse me. I beat them 3 times while I was a quarterback, twice as a starting quarterback, and I had some of the biggest games in Michigan history against Ohio State. That's what I would say. So Jim's a better man than me when people will go off, out of and say about, he never has said that, Johnny. Never once has he said anything about his playing career when asked the question, as he has, as you know, many times, about how come you can't beat Ohio State. So I would have made sure everybody knew, I know how to beat Ohio State. I got to get my players to understand now how to beat Ohio State.
Yeah, that's true. He's not playing, right? So it is the players that play the game. And I'm always reminded of the man in the arena poem, and I don't criticize coaching. It's a hard gig. And, not too many jobs in the world where we can all look at and critique and think we're the expert. It just doesn't happen. But a football coach, football players, we can always say, this is what you're doing right, this is what you're doing wrong. There's a guy, Jim Moore, the old New Orleans Saint coach. There's a YouTube video. I love it. So it's called You Just Don't Know. And as much as media has followed, football for years, you just don't know. You don't know what type of player they're coaching, what the plays there are, what the adjustments are. You just don't know. And so even as a former player, I can get frustrated. I can see, and I have to ask myself, well, what are you guys doing on that play? Oh, you made that call. Oh, I get it now. I understand. You just don't know what is happening. How many, is it a missed assignment? Is it a misread? Is it just, hey, that guy beat you? There's all kinds of things on every play. And again, a coach is managing 100 different personalities. Every kid's motivated differently. Again, this comes down to the week of preparation. How good a week are we prepared mentally, emotionally, and obviously physically? They're already there. But that's the thing. It's a tough gig. It's and everyone looks to the wins and the losses. But it used to be raising young men. That's what coaching used to be. And obviously throwing the business and the dollars in the sense, and they're the highest paid employee of every state, public school employee. But those are the things that I look at, what's my kid's experience doing? And he's having a great experience as a player, as a student at the University of Michigan.
Will it mean more to you for him to get a win than it did you getting a win as a player, John?
Well, you're a parent, right? You always want to see your kids do good. You feel for them when they lost. They had that big loss against Michigan State, and they could, by and large, should have won, but things happened, and you saw the dejection. You don't want to make sure that you're a parent. At the end of the day, I played. It's his journey. My job is to clear the path and support him, and maybe give him a couple of the here and there's. But it's his journey. I'm just so happy that he's having fun and enjoying it, and really embracing the whole college experience.
For you, looking at it from afar now, how do you see what Ryan Day has done with Ohio State since he took over for Urban Meyer? And he's not that Jim Tressel guy, that Ohio guy. He was brought in from afar, but he seems to get it for whatever reason where John Cooper didn't.
Exactly. He's 2-0. He has. They did a compare Saturday. His record versus Urban's in their first 3 seasons. And he's right on path. He's doing the right thing. He's talking the right way. And I think it is important. I think it's very important, and the program understands that. You, like as John said, you're the highest paid public, official, non-official in the state. So, the biggest thing is, for our team is, as John alluded to, who's the most prepared, who understands the game. It's going to come down to, a couple, 2 4th downs that make a decision. Do we go for it or do we not? It's going to be a drop pass here and there, maybe a special teams play or a field goal here and there. But this game, the history of it, the moment, both teams are going to be well prepared. Coach Harbaugh has done an excellent job getting his team resurgent and revitalized this season and playing well. They took a hard loss against Michigan State. The way that Ohio State played last week against Michigan State, you would believe we have the nod, but it's the rivalry. You throw the records out the window. And ultimately, both teams are going to be well prepared and coming in ready to play. I'm a big fan. I can't wait, to see how this thing turns out. And it's a national championship implications, for both parties. And, I hope my team comes out on the winning end, because we are the Ohio State, and I support us 110%. But I know it's going to be a tough game. It's not going to be easy. Even just a couple of years ago, like you said, with JT and those guys going out double overtime. Harbaugh's been right there on the cuffs of getting his first win. I think he took the opportunity to get a fresh start and let COVID last year say, hey, you know what, we're not playing this game. And now this team has a different mentality. So who knows, chipping at the bit, these guys are going to be hungry to say, hey, we didn't play in this game last year. Ohio State, whatever, 2-year lapse in a sense. And it's going to be exciting for both parties.
Yeah, no doubt about it. As far as, Johnny, you were talking about preparation this week, and Mike, you too. To me, what C.J. Stroud has done, in this Ohio State offense as freshman quarterback, I've got a Heisman Trophy vote. And guys, I'm telling you, I'm thinking normally I've had votes. Freshmen, I'm going to say, well, I might lean toward a young man who's been in the program for 3 or 4 years, but C.J. Stroud to me has been so impressive. And this Ohio State pass game with the receivers, of course, that they have seems to me, I make a case it might be the best in college football right now. So for both of you, Michigan defensively being able to deal with that, and I don't think you're going to stop it, but Johnny, you think, can they defensively with, again, the young new defensive coordinator? Don Brown certainly couldn't do it, for the last few years. But can Mike Macdonald, this young defensive coordinator, Johnny, do you think it's going to come down to as much scheme and how Macdonald looks to play against that ultra-talented receiving core as it is going to be just personnel with the skill set to do it?
Yeah, it's a combination, right? And CJ Stroud, I've got a chance to watch a lot of Ohio State this year, because I watched Tommy play and everything else. In the early years, he was off target. And what you've seen, though, is improvement, considerable improvement. And like I said, they're running on all cylinders. And the way that, and again, Ryan Day is a Chip Kelly descendant, right? Chip Kelly was his offensive coordinator in New Hampshire. So he's taken a Chip Kelly offense and made it his own. And so that's a prolific offense, and it does causes challenges for defenders. And Mike's a defensive back, and he understands when guys are crossing and they're flooding, they're going across the grain. There's a lot of rules, a lot of switching, a lot of challenges. Man here, underman there, different things. And McDonald, coming from the pro game, might have a better understanding of that. But at the same time, this unique offense that they brought from the East Coast has been causing havoc. And can you match up man to man, speed for speed? And Ohio State's got some tremendous talent at wide receiver, and the kid that came back, Olave, and all these other guys that are rising up. And then let's not forget Trevion Henderson.
Yeah, right.
He is something else. And I'm like, where's Master Teague? Where's he playing? And this guy just taking over, and he is an impressive back. So when you have this multi-pronged attack, it is causing havoc. And if I was coach, and I'm not doing this, but I would go back. Okay, well, what did Oregon do? What were they doing? And that was early in the year. I want to see what they did. I want to see what Nebraska did. Now, Nebraska, I look at Nebraska, Penn State, Michigan State. A lot of them are relatively good teams, and they've battled, and so they kept Ohio State at 26 points. And I'm like, well, they're averaging 50. So how did they do that? I'm going to look at those games. What did they do right and wrong? Like I said, you're not going to stop it. They're going to gain yards. They're going to get first downs. And what you have to do, it's 4 quarters. Keep the faith, look for a bump, look for hair, look for a missed assignment, look for a guy falling down. Those are the things you got to stick with. The offense, and I think, one of the things, this is when Bo and I played, right, is keep their offense off the field. So our offense has to contribute. We got to be the 12th men for our defense. You have those long drives, sustained drives. So keep the game low scoring, because if it's going to be a track meet, we're going to be in trouble, because, Ohio State's got the tools and the weapons to do it.
Mike Dawes, what about the Buckeyes defense? Because after 2 games, major shakeup. They switched defensive coordinators. Kerry Combs goes from the field up to the box. Matt Barnes comes down to the field. He's been calling plays. There was personnel switches. Some of the older guys, they said, you know what? You had 2 games to prove it. We've got 5-star freshmen and sophomores that are just as good as you that we're going to put in there. So defensively, are you at all concerned about this young defense playing in Ann Arbor in this game, or do you feel like they've made enough strides where they should be fine?
You're always concerned. I mean, it's the rivalry game, right? This game is going to be won in the trenches on either side of the ball for both teams, right? Whose offensive line can establish a push? Whose defensive line can hold the front? Who can put them in 3rd and long? We know this game is going to come down to 3rd down efficiency, right? This game is going to be turnovers. So whoever wins those battles has the best chance to actually win this game. And as John alluded to, I'm worried that Michigan is going to grind the clock. I guarantee John's like, look, if we can control the clock, we can control the game. And our team, Ohio State, is like, okay, it's a track meet. Let's keep it a track meet. If they got to keep up pace, we score 7 points. They better score 7 points. They can't kick field goals. So that this game is going to come down to who wants it more, who can win the turnover battle, who can make who wins the penalties. Who doesn't get a lot of penalties called on them. And I'm concerned, and from our defensive standpoint, I'm never going to sit here and act like, hey, we got a top 5 defense right now. I think our defensive line last week played their best game. That was, the way our offense started off, it put them in a position to unleash, shoot the gaps, make some plays. And ultimately, we stopped the number 1 rusher in the country, held him to 6 carries for 25 yards. But still, that average off of 6 carries makes me nervous. You know what I mean? But the bottom line is, this game is going to come down to which defense wants it more, which defense makes the play late there in the 4th quarter. And that is what it comes down to. Both teams are very talented. There's talent across the board on both teams, but the defense wins championships. I don't care. At the end of the day, you can have the number 1 efficiency offense in the country. You can have the number 1 this, number 1 that, but the defense is going to come down. Can the defense make a stop when it counts? And I hope and I pray that our defense steps up to the plate and uses the momentum off of Michigan State to carry that into Saturday.
Michael Rega, you got any final thoughts or questions for these guys before we let them loose and they can prepare to talk to everybody else about this game later in the week?
So pleased and appreciate so much that Bo Mike Dawson, John Kolesar joined us because, again, these aren't just guys who happen to be a part of the rivalry. These are guys.
These are legends.
Yes,
John,
no question.
Right?
No question. For their respective programs, Mike Doss, John Kolesar, legends. And when their team won, again, they had huge impacts on those particular games in the rivalry. For me, guys, I tell you, and Mike, you were just talking about it, Johnny, you too. I do see a little bit of, and I'm going old school because I'm the oldest guy here, as I said, but I do see a little bit of the possibility of 1969 here, Bo Schembechler's first year, when Woody Hayes, everybody felt had, what was the thing, John? They should be in the NFL. Remember that? The Ohio State Buckeyes should be an NFL team. Mike, you remember that?
That was considered that they had one of the best teams in the history of college football, and that they were talking about scrimmaging the Steelers or something.
And Michigan held them to 12 points, and that, I think that's where the certainly Michigan legend and legacy of Bo Schembechler began. He beats Woody Hayes, his mentor, in Ohio State 24-12. So and there you go. And that started the 21-year run of Bo Schembechler and winning 13 Big Ten championships during his period. So again, is the possibility there? I guess so. I know this, though. Mike and John both alluded to me. I think 30 is the magic number if you're Michigan. If you can find a way to keep Ohio State at 30 or maybe even the low 30s point-wise, I think Michigan's got a shot to win the football game. Now, if it gets up into that, low to mid 40s or more, well, Ohio State's offense is very much more suited for that than Michigan's is. Although, Johnny, I do think Cade McNamara is a lot better quarterback than most people believe he is. I mean, well, he's not. I think he's been solid this year and played very, very well and has grown and added to, as the year started, Michigan had the top running game in the country, right? Averaging over 260 yards a game. Well, now that's come down a little bit because McNamara has started to throw the football a lot more, and he's gotten receivers involved in it. So, I mean, to me, again, though, bottom line, it comes down to, can Michigan keep Ohio State from having those explosion chunk touchdown plays that the Buckeyes, you can't beat Ohio State that way. If you can do that, though, and keep them at, to me, 30 points right around there, I think Michigan's got a shot to win. Yeah.
Mike Doss, I'm going to lean towards what you said, the line of scrimmage. Hutchinson and is it Ojabo, guys?
David Ojabo.
Ojabo.
You better get it right, Ojabo.
Ojabo. Yeah, Ojabo and Hutchinson. If they can put pressure, if there's one chink in the armor of the redshirt freshman quarterback, C.J. Stroud, through all season, not just the loss to Oregon. And we know he had a shoulder issue, in that game after the Minnesota game. It's come out now. But when there have been people around his feet or putting pressure on him, Mike Doss, he's missed some wide open targets or he's overthrown, and that's an issue. So I'm with you. I think the line of scrimmage, that offensive line for Ohio State, if they can control those two defensive linemen, I think the Buckeyes really can pick their point total in this game. If they can't, that's where Michigan has a chance because it's in their building. The crowd will go crazy. What do they seat in there, Johnny, now? Like 180,000 now up there in Michigan?
Yeah.
Right?
And they pumping in sound.
Yeah.
They got them extra speakers in there too, John.
There's some gamesmanship with that.
I'm jealous.
Yeah.
I'm jealous of John because he's 3-1 and I was 2-2. I'm only 500 ball against my rivalry. But I felt, my last two were very important to get that first one with Tressel and obviously the win to go to play in the national championship. But I still, my freshman and sophomore year thought we had a chance to win those games. And, so I'm envious of you, John, there. You 3-1, man. So you got a little bit of bragging rights on me on that one, buddy.
Well, they were great games. Like you said, the one we lost, it was uncharacteristic. And I'll tell you one thing, too, about that and the type of guy Bo was and Earl and Woody and these whole guys. After that game, I think Bo went into the locker room and to the Ohio State locker room, but he doesn't like to lose. But that day, he didn't feel that bad because of the way Earl got treated. And so when you saw these icons of men, and I got a chance to meet Woody and when he was alive, and again, knowing Tressel through my dad and having all these relationships, it makes it such a special thing. You know, the 2 and 2, the 3 and 1, the 1 and 3s. And, you know, at the end of the day, this is what it's about, because we have that fraternity, Mike. And that's what I cherish. And I got a chance, matter of fact, not too long ago, to meet William White, who's my defender on one of the plays.
Wow.
For 25 years. And it was at an Ohio State basketball game. They were playing Michigan, and we just embraced and talked and laughed. And, you know, it was one of those things where it's just, you know what, it's that love, that fraternity. And that's what's special about it. At the end of this game, no matter who wins or loses, these guys are going to remember it for a lifetime. And they're going to, and if they're lucky, they're going to come out with some friendships and great memories and do this 20 years from now. Who knows? There'll be like hieroglyphics or whatever technology they have in 20 years from now. You know, they're going to have a lot of fun doing it.
Yeah, I'll say I agree with him. I mean, some of the relationships I still have, you know, me and Cato June, and we have a stand-in bet every year. You know, whoever loses, you got to send a box of cigars of the winner's choice. You know, so like, you know, these are the things that we do. Man, it's the greatest. I was blessed to be in a part of this rivalry. Man, I really enjoyed my time in college there at Ohio State and playing in this game. And as you said, you remember every Saturday. I can't remember every play, but at the end of the day, that environment, that emotion, the preparation, the understanding, this fraternity is very small, and to be a part of it was truly a blessing and a lot of fun. And this is why we're here talking about it now, because we know how important it is for both communities, both states, you know, the lineage. It carries on, and I'm excited, and I can't wait for Saturday. I can't believe it's only Tuesday. That, you know, we still got to enjoy Thanksgiving. We got Black Friday, and then we got Saturday at noon, where we got pregame tailgating in our houses and family and hosting people. Man, I mean, it truly brings everyone together. That's the part I really like post-career. Like, if you could ask me the question, what of the rivalry you enjoy the most, is post-career, be able to build up, you know, up to the Saturday, to know that these kids are going out there playing for them, for themselves, playing for then their teammates, then they're playing for their families, and then they're also playing for their communities and their states. It's truly a lot to enjoy. And I love the post-career to be able to host events, enjoy each other, embrace it, and talk about it for years to come.
It's been great for us to have both of you legends in the game join us here on the Regai and Rhoda podcast. And Michael, when you told me it was Kolesar, it was like flashback city, man. I remember, when I was in college and just out of college, watching him play and everything like that. And it was like, man, I knew he was 3-1 right away. Mike Dawes, you know that. You know what the records are with everybody. They know if you're 3-1, you make sure everybody knows that. It's like Tyvis Powell. We had him on our radio show today. Tyvis like, I don't know what it's like to lose against Michigan. I was 4-0, right? So that's the fun part of all of this for us as media members, never played in it, to get to talk to guys like you. And as Michael Regai has said, not just guys who played in the game, guys who impacted that game and are legends in the game. So Mike Doss, John Kolesar, thanks for joining us here on the Regai and Rhoda podcast. Michael, final thoughts for you before we get out of here?
Just appreciate it. Have so much respect for both of you that, as we looked at your college careers and the impact you had, but just so much respect in what you meant to both of your tremendous programs. I'm Big Ten guy, man, so I'm always going to pump up both Michigan and Ohio State as much as I can, rather than going into the SEC or the ACC or any other conference.
Well, hey, I got a thought about that, and the media needs to drive this, because, the SEC, the Pac-10, I said, you get this college football playoff. You come to Ann Arbor or Columbus, Ohio in December or January, and you play football. You get a nice grass, sunny. No. And the reason is, you well will know this, if you're going to play in the North Atlantic, you got to practice in the North Atlantic. And that's why you got to have all those systems working. And I want to have a home game in November and December
Johnny, you know what? I'll say to that. I'll say this. I've got a real good relationship with Nick Saban when he was the Browns defensive coordinator, and
he recruited me out of high school, and he was at Michigan State.
Yes, and I've said that to Nick too before, and so what a hell of a great guy Coach Saban is. He even got a laugh, and he said, "Red guy, you're not wrong." It was, he said, you're not wrong. He said, and I'm kind of glad him being, an Ohio guy, played at Kent State. As you said, John, Michigan State, coached at Ohio State. He knows. So when I said, Coach Saban, you don't ever have to come up and play, as John just alluded to. You don't have to play in Ann Arbor in December. Jacob, you're not wrong, right guy. That's right. I'm glad we don't have to do that. So I always appreciated that about Coach Saban.
Yeah. Beautiful Saturday afternoons. We got 36, I think.
I'm looking at it right now.
Cloudy.
Yeah.
Yep. 37, some sun, some clouds, and the greatest game in college football to be played. And we'll watch it, and maybe we'll redo this again next year and see what happened this year. Hey, guys, seriously, thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule. I know this week you guys are in demand and everything like that. So Michael and I really appreciate you spending some time with us here on the R&R podcast.
Go Blue.
Go Bucks.
Hey, you guys are the best, both of you.
Great.
I got you covered, Mike, on that one.
Thanks, man.
Again for joining us, guys.
Right,
and Reg, this was a lot of fun.
Great deal of fun.
We'll recap the Browns and the Buckeyes the next time we get together on the R&R podcast. So that'll be outstanding to have two big games to talk about, because let's be honest, Michael, for Michigan or Ohio State, they win this game, they got a shot at the playoffs. If the Browns beat Baltimore, they got a shot at the playoffs again. If they lose, both teams, whoever lose, they're out of the playoff picture, in my opinion. So that next podcast we do is going to be big, recapping these games.
Yeah, it will. So make sure you're locked in on that. But we appreciate all of you that check us out on R&R. And again, Mike Doss, John Kolesar, you guys are the best. Thanks so much for jumping by with us and bringing some of those legendary moments of yours to all the listeners. Appreciate
Absolutely, man.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Have a good one.
You too. Enjoy the game, gentlemen. All right, that'll wrap it up for this edition of the Red Guy and Rhoda podcast, brought to you by MGM Northfieldpark. Go have some fun at Northfieldpark. Free admission, free parking every day at Northfieldpark. Happy to have them as the sponsor of what we do here on the R&R podcast. Thanks to our producer, Dave Emmert, for putting this all together for everybody out there, all the Buckeye fans, all the Wolverine fans out there, getting an opportunity to listen and hear from two legends in the game. All right, Reg, enjoy the games this weekend, and we'll talk late Sunday night or Monday morning, whenever it is.
Yeah, whenever it is. Kenny, think of me, please, because, and again, it's my passion. I love it, but I will be calling Miami at Kent State for the MAC East Division Championship while Michigan and Ohio State are going at it. So, I'll be kind of locked in a different direction, but look forward to seeing you when we get together on Sunday.
I'm hosting a Ohio State-Michigan watch party at the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and we're doing a halftime chalk talk.
Cool.
Where they're going to bring in former Buckeyes and former Wolverine players to the Pro Football Hall of Fame on Saturday. So that'll be neat there, too. All right, Reg, have a good call in your game. Thanks to everybody for listening, and make sure you check us out after the Browns game this weekend and the Ohio State game, as we'll recap that one and break it down as only we can here on the R&R podcast.